I woke up to the sound of the alarm clock at 5 in the morning. My hand automatically reached out to turn off the annoying sound, but it took me 3 tries to hit the button. Michael didn't even stir. He was sleeping with his back to me, as he had been doing for the past 10 years. I carefully slipped out from under the covers, trying not to wake him. It wasn't that he was a light sleeper. It was just that I had long since learned to avoid my husband's morning grumbling. The cold floor touched my bare feet. My slippers were missing again. Sean must have taken them to wear and left them somewhere in the living room. The house was quiet, only the clock in the hallway counting the seconds of my life, which was becoming more and more joyless with each passing day. The kitchen was a mess. Dirty plates, half-empty glasses, a pizza box, evidence of the children's late dinner. I sighed and started cleaning up. Morning coffee would have to wait. In 33 years of marriage, I had learned that messes were always my responsibility, even if I had nothing to do with them. The dishwasher had broken down a long time ago, and Michael and I had decided that we couldn't afford a new one right now. More precisely, he had decided, and I had remained silent as usual. The cold water burned my hands. The boiler was also working intermittently. The clock showed 5:30 when I put the oatmeal on to cook. Someone had eaten the last of the cereal, leaving an empty box in the cupboard. Probably Sean, who still lived with us, despite being 25 years old. At his age, Michael already had a stable job and a house with a mortgage. And now? I shook my head, chasing away the gloomy thoughts. It was pointless to compare that time with the present. At 6:15, I was already dressed and wearing makeup, mascara on my eyelashes and a little blush, a last attempt to look like a human being, not a tired wreck. My light blue nurse's uniform hung loosely on me. I had lost almost 10 kilograms over the past year, but not because of a good life. I often didn't have time to eat. I ran into Sean in the hallway. I was surprised he was already awake. "Good morning, sweetie," I greeted my son, trying to catch his eye. "Mm-hmm," he muttered, looking at his phone. "Mom, I need money." No good morning or how are you in response, just a statement of what he needed. "What for?" I asked, even though I knew the answer would be vague. "For living." Sean looked up at me irritably. "I told you, they cut my hours at the call center this month. This was already the third job he'd failed at this year." I wearily reached into my purse and pulled out two $20 bills. "Here, that's all I have on me." The rest after my shift, Sean grabbed the money and, without saying thank you, went into the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator door slam. He must have found the oatmeal I had left for myself. At 6:45, I was already standing at the bus stop. The bus was late, as usual. The cold autumn wind chilled me to the bone, but I had left my raincoat at home. Meredith had come by yesterday and borrowed it for an indefinite period. When I asked where she was going, my daughter just rolled her eyes. "God, Mom, you're so nosy." St. Lawrence Hospital in Raleigh greeted me with its usual hustle and bustle. The emergency room was filled with patients. There had been an accident on the highway during the night, and several victims had been brought in. "Linda, finally!" exclaimed head nurse Patricia as soon as she saw me. "We need help in the third ward, and Morgan is having problems with his catheter again." Without even having time to hang my bag in the locker, I set off to carry out the orders. The day began just like hundreds of others before it, with an endless series of small and large tasks that had to be performed flawlessly and without delay. By noon, I had changed the bedding for 6 patients, set up IVs for 3, helped the doctor dress the burns of a teenager, and calmed down the hysterical relative of one of the accident victims. My lunch break flew by. In 20 minutes, I barely had time to drink my tea and eat the sandwich I had brought from home. "Linda, you look especially pale today," my colleague Rachel remarked when we bumped into each other in the hallway. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, I just didn't get enough sleep," I lied. Rachel was 10 years younger than me, recently divorced, and had 2 children to take care of. Her problems seemed much more significant to me than my own. Besides, complaining is not my style. Don't forget Jerry's party tomorrow, she reminded me. Everyone's expecting you to come. Jerry was the senior doctor in the department, and his house parties were legendary. I usually declined, citing family obligations, but this time, I'll try, I promised, even though I knew I probably wouldn't go. Tomorrow was my birthday, and no matter how things were going with my family, I still hoped to spend the day with my loved ones. The second half of the shift dragged on endlessly. At 3 o'clock, Emma came to relieve me, but she was immediately sent to the operating room to help with an emergency. I stayed for another 4 hours, even though my legs were buzzing and my back ached with every movement. I got home at almost 9 in the evening, having been on my feet for more than 14 hours. The house greeted me with dim light and the smell of fried chicken. My heart warmed for a moment. Maybe Michael had made dinner after all? But in the kitchen, I found only dirty plates and an empty package from the chicken bought at the nearby supermarket. They had eaten and hadn't even thought to leave me a portion. I mechanically loaded the dishes into the sink and began washing them. There was a receipt from the store on the table. Michael had used my credit card to make the purchase. Of course, why not? My salary had long since become shared, while his income from the construction company was his own business. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Meredith calling. Mom, hi, you don't mind if I come over with Brad tomorrow, do you? My daughter began without preamble. Hi, Meredith. No, of course not, I replied, feeling a warm glow inside. So she does remember my birthday after all. Great. By the way, you're buying the cake, right? Brad loves chocolate. The smile slowly faded from my face. Of course I will, I said. Do you remember what day tomorrow is? Um, Tuesday? Meredith's voice sounded impatient. Listen, I have to run. See you tomorrow. She hung up without waiting for my answer. I stood there, pressing the phone to my ear, feeling a treacherous sting in my eyes. My own daughter had forgotten my birthday. But then again, why was I surprised? For the past few years, the holiday had been a mess, if it was celebrated at all. The TV was on in the living room. Michael was sitting in his favorite chair, sipping beer and watching the sports channel. I paused in the doorway, wondering if he would notice me without a reminder. Hi, I finally said, when it became clear that he wasn't going to pay any attention to me on his own. Oh, you're home, he said, without even looking up from the screen. What's for dinner? I just got home, I reminded him gently, and I see you've already eaten without me. Oh, yes, he took a sip of beer. Sean was hungry, so we didn't wait. There seems to be something left. I silently returned to the kitchen. There was indeed a piece of cold chicken in the refrigerator, but my appetite was completely gone. Instead of dinner, I made myself some tea and sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the cracked laminate flooring. Tomorrow I'll be 54. Half my life is behind me, and what do I have? A job that sucks all my energy, a husband who doesn't notice me, children who treat their mother like some kind of ATM and servant rolled into one. Things used to be different. Michael and I met when I was 19 and he was 21. He was a handsome, confident guy who worked in construction and dreamed of starting his own company. I had just enrolled in medical school and dreamed of a career as a doctor. But 2 years later, Irvin was born and I had to drop out. Then Meredith came along, and 3 years later, Sean. I had to forget about medical school and settle for nursing courses. Michael eventually started his own business, but it didn't bring in the income he had hoped for. Gradually, disappointment in life turned him into an irritable, perpetually dissatisfied man. And I became a shadow that glided around the house, trying not to make any noise or attract unnecessary attention. The tea had gone cold, offering no comfort. I got up to wash the cup and noticed a magnet on the refrigerator advertising a local bakery. Yes, I should order a cake for tomorrow. At least I can treat myself, right? Michael was already asleep in the bedroom, turned toward the wall. I lay down carefully next to him, trying not to disturb the mattress. Sleep did not come. Thoughts about tomorrow swirled in my head. Maybe everything would be different. Maybe the children remembered after all and had prepared a surprise. Maybe Michael would give me at least a small gift. I closed my eyes, imagining how tomorrow evening we would all be sitting at the table, the children laughing and telling stories from their lives. Michael looking at me with warmth, as he used to, and saying something like, "You're still beautiful, Linda." Silly dreams of a silly woman. The morning began with noise in the bathroom. Sean hadn't closed the door again, and his endless shower woke me up before the alarm clock. I looked at the pillow next to me. Michael was already gone. He must have left for work early. There was no congratulatory note or flowers on the nightstand. Nothing that could hint at the special nature of this day. Going down to the kitchen, I found Sean there, intently digging through his phone while eating the last eggs from the refrigerator. "Good morning," I said, hoping my son would remember the date. "Hi," he said without looking up. "Listen, I'll be back late today. Don't wait up." "But today is," I began. I know, your shift ends at 4," Sean interrupted. "I haven't forgotten. I just have a job interview today, and then a meeting with the guys." A job interview is good, I noted to myself. Maybe he'll finally find a permanent job. "Good luck," I said sincerely. "But try to be back by 7, okay?" "Why?" He frowned. "Is something important happening?" I felt my heart sink. Even my little brother had forgotten. "No, nothing special," I lied, turning away so he wouldn't notice my lips trembling. "I just wanted to have everyone together." "Okay, I'll try," he reluctantly agreed, grabbing his jacket and rushing out of the house. Alone, I drank coffee and thought about what to do next. Today, I had a short day at the hospital until 4. I could stop by the bakery, order a small cake, and buy groceries for dinner. If my family didn't want to make this day special, I would make it so myself. No one at work knew it was my birthday. I never advertised the date. It was probably only listed in my personnel file. However, Rachel noticed that I had styled my hair especially carefully today and was wearing a string of pearls that I didn't usually wear to work. "You look great," she said with a smile. "Special day?" I hesitated, not knowing whether to say anything. "It's my birthday," I finally admitted. "Linda," she exclaimed, "and you didn't say anything. How old are you?" 54, I smiled shyly. "Congratulations." Rachel hugged me impulsively. "So, no party at Jerry's today?" "No, I'm spending the day with my family." "Right," she nodded. "Let your husband and kids spoil you." I just smiled in response, not wanting to shatter her image of my family idol. The day at the hospital flew by. I helped with the discharge paperwork for an elderly patient who had been with us for almost a month, checked IVs, and changed bed linens. At lunchtime, Rachel handed me a chocolate cupcake with a small candle, and it was the first congratulations I had received that day. At exactly 4 o'clock, I left the hospital and went to the Sweet Dreams Bakery. The saleswoman, a plump woman with a kind face, clarified the details of my order. "So, this is for you?" she asked when I explained that I needed the cake for a birthday. "Yes," I nodded awkwardly. "Then I'll make a special inscription," she winked at me. "And we still offer discounts for birthday boys and girls." This simple gesture of kindness from a complete stranger somehow touched me deeply. I barely held back my tears as I paid for the cake and arranged for delivery. At the supermarket, I chose ingredients for the holiday dinner: ribs for Michael, turkey for Meredith, who was watching her weight, and potato salad, which Erwin loved. I even bought an expensive bottle of wine. a small luxury for a special occasion. When I got home, I was surprised to find that the front door was unlocked. There were unfamiliar women's high-heeled shoes in the hallway. Could Meredith have already arrived? But she didn't wear shoes like that. I could hear voices coming from the kitchen, a man's and a woman's, Michael and someone else. My heart began to beat faster. Maybe he remembers after all? Maybe he invited guests and is preparing a surprise? I carefully made my way to the kitchen, trying not to make any noise with the grocery bags. I froze in the doorway, not believing my eyes. Michael was sitting at the table with a young woman I had never seen before. They were drinking wine, my wine, which I had bought last week for a special occasion. And they were laughing, sitting so close to each other that there was no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I stepped back, trying not to make any noise with the bags. My heart was pounding in my chest, and a lump formed in my throat. No, it couldn't be. Not on my birthday. I quietly walked into the living room and sat down on the sofa, trying to collect my thoughts. Who was this woman? Why had Michael brought her to our house? And why today of all days? I could hear laughter coming from the kitchen, a light female laugh and a hoarse male laugh that I hadn't heard in a very long time. When was the last time Michael laughed like that in front of me? 5 years ago? 10? I wanted to get up, go into the kitchen, and demand an explanation. But something held me back. Maybe fear, or maybe just a reluctance to make a scene. I always avoided conflict, preferring to smooth things over. Michael called it my weakness. The grocery bags began to dig into my fingers. I carefully placed them on the floor and took a deep breath. I had to do something. At that moment, I heard from the kitchen, "I'm going to take a shower, and you put the bottle away." She mustn't suspect anything. I quickly got up, grabbed the bags, and headed for the stairs leading to the second floor. I managed to slip by unnoticed. They were too absorbed in each other. In the bedroom, I hid the groceries in the closet and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to digest what I had seen. Was Michael really cheating on me? I had always dismissed these thoughts, attributing his coldness to fatigue, problems at work, a midlife crisis, anything but another woman. But now the truth had come out, and I didn't know what to do with it. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Erwin calling. "Hi, Mom." My eldest son's voice sounded unusually excited. "Listen, I won't be able to come at 6 tomorrow. Can we move dinner to 8? I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Erwin, do you remember what day tomorrow is?" The pause lasted a second longer than it should have. "Of course I remember," he replied too quickly. "It's your birthday." He said the last words so quietly, as if he didn't want anyone around him to hear. Strange. "That's good," I said, trying to keep my voice sounding normal. "So, at 8. And, Erwin, are you coming alone?" "No, Jenna and I are coming." "Why?" "No reason. I just want to know how many place settings to set." After talking to my son, I felt strangely uneasy. Something was wrong. Erwin was definitely hiding something. Maybe he had simply forgotten about my birthday and was now rushing to find a gift. Or was it something else? I heard the front door slam. Walking over to the window, I saw Michael walking a stranger to her car, a brand new silver Volkswagen. They were standing too close together, their silhouettes merging into one. I turned away, not wanting to see if they kissed goodbye. A few minutes later, Michael came up to the bedroom. When he saw me, he froze for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. "Are you home already?" he asked, trying to sound surprised but not guilty. "I thought you were working the whole shift today." "Shortened day," I replied, watching his reaction closely. "Did you have guests?" "Oh, that." He waved his hand. "A colleague stopped by to sign some documents. Tamsin from accounting." So her name was Tamsin, a strange, unusual name, like the woman herself, with her high heels and loud laugh. "I see. I said, not betraying my suspicions. You haven't forgotten that tomorrow. Of course I haven't, he interrupted me. It's your birthday. 54, right? Something in his tone made me wary. It was as if he wasn't talking to me, but to someone invisible who was listening to our conversation. Yes, I nodded. I invited the kids over for dinner. Meredith is coming with Brad, Erwin with Jenna. Only Sean will probably be alone. Great, a family dinner. Michael smiled tensely. I'll stop by the store after work and buy something. He didn't specify what he would buy, a gift, flowers, alcohol, but I didn't ask. A strange feeling was growing inside me. Something was coming, something bad. In the evening, while Michael was taking a shower, his phone, left on the nightstand, vibrated. I wasn't going to peek, but the name on the screen caught my attention. Tamsin. The message popped up automatically. Everything is ready for tomorrow. They don't suspect anything, I froze. What was she talking about? What was ready? And who were they? For some reason, I was sure it was about me. Suddenly, I was overcome with fear. Michael and this woman were plotting something, and somehow my children were involved. In the morning, I woke up with a headache. Yesterday's event seemed like a bad dream, but the feeling of anxiety remained. Michael left early, supposedly for an important meeting with contractors. I didn't mention that I had seen the message from Tamsin. Not yet. The hospital was unusually quiet. Several patients had been discharged, and no new ones had arrived. I mechanically performed my duties, but my thoughts kept returning to what awaited me in the evening. What was Michael planning? And did the children know about his plans? Linda, you're not yourself today, Rachel remarked when we bumped into each other in the doctor's office. Is something wrong? I hesitated. Should I tell her about my suspicions? On the other hand, I desperately needed advice from someone outside the situation. Rachel, I began cautiously. How did you realize your husband was cheating on you? She raised her eyebrows in surprise, but quickly regained her composure. Intuition, she replied after a pause. At first, I just felt that something was wrong. Then I noticed the little things: new cologne, coming home late from work, strange phone calls. And then I found the evidence. She looked at me intently. Linda, do you think Michael? I don't know, I admitted. Yesterday I caught him with some woman at our house. He said she was a colleague, but you don't believe him, Rachel finished for me. And you're right not to. Men don't bring colleagues home when their wives are away, unless those colleagues have become someone important. Her bluntness was painful but sobering. What should I do? I asked, feeling lost. For starters, stop being a doormat, Rachel said firmly. How many years have you let him walk all over you? And not just him, your kids too. I see how you talk about them, how you excuse their behavior. They've all been walking all over you for a long time. Her words hit the mark. I really did let my family use me, thinking that was my role, to be useful, needed, irreplaceable. But in the end, I just became convenient. I wasn't always like this, I said quietly. I used to be able to stand up for myself. Then remember who you were. Rachel put her hand on my shoulder. Because if you don't respect yourself, you can't expect others to respect you. Her words struck a chord with me. On the way home, I thought about who I used to be, before marriage, before children, before my life turned into an endless series of responsibilities to others. I grew up in a military family. My father, Nathan Hollister, was a tough but fair man. He taught me never to give up, always to fight for what I believed was right. Linda, he would say, you are the architect of your own destiny. No one can make you happy except yourself. In college, I was one of the best students. My teachers predicted a bright future for me in medicine. I had ambitions, dreams, goals. I wasn't afraid to argue or defend my point of view. In fact, I once organized a student strike against unfair rules in the dormitory, and I won. When Michael and I met, he was charmed by my energy and independence. You're not like everyone else, he said. You have fire in you. He liked that I didn't just agree with him, that I had my own opinion. But gradually everything changed. After Irvin was born, I had to quit school. Michael insisted that I stay home with the baby. It's temporary, he assured me. You'll go back to college later. But then Meredith was born, followed by Sean, and returning to medical school became an increasingly distant dream. Michael was changing too. His admiration for my independence turned to irritation. Why do you always argue? He began to ask. Gradually, I learned to keep quiet so as not to provoke conflict. Then I started agreeing with him on everything to keep the peace in the family. And then I became invisible, a person who was always there, always ready to help, but whose own desires and needs no one cared about. The children also played a role in this transformation. At first, they were the center of my universe. I lived for them, breathed for them. But as they grew up, I realized with pain that my unconditional love and constant willingness to sacrifice myself were taken for granted. They learned from their father to treat me like a servant. When Irvin turned 16, I tried to go back to school. I enrolled in evening nursing classes. Michael was against it. Who will cook dinner? He asked, and the children supported him, complaining that I was never home. In the end, I finished the courses, but the idea of getting a full education remained a dream. With each passing year, my self-confidence melted away. I began to doubt every decision I made, every opinion I expressed. If Michael or the children criticized me, I immediately admitted I was wrong, even if my inner voice screamed the opposite. I stopped arguing, stopped dreaming, stopped being myself. The bus pulled up to my stop, interrupting the flow of memories. I got out, feeling strangely determined. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe it was time to stop being a doormat and remember who I used to be. No one was home, and I was glad. I had to get ready for the evening, but first I had to call my father. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. After my mother's death, our relationship became strained. My father didn't approve of my marriage to Michael, considering him not ambitious enough. And I resented his criticism, his inability to accept my choice. But now, on the eve of my birthday, I suddenly realized how much I missed his firm voice, his direct, sometimes painful, but always honest advice. The phone rang for a long time. I was about to hang up when a hoarse voice came from the other end. Hollister here. Dad, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. It's me, Linda. Pause. Linda. There was no surprise in his voice, only fatigue. Did something happen? No, I faltered. What could I say? That my husband was probably cheating on me? That my children had forgotten my birthday? That I had lost myself and didn't know how to find my way back? I just wanted to hear your voice. Tomorrow is my birthday. I remember, he replied. 54. Of course he remembered. My father never forgot anything. How are you? I asked, trying to keep the conversation going. Fine, he replied curtly. And you? Michael? The kids? Everything's fine, I lied. Erwin works at a bank. Meredith works at a hotel. Sean, still living off you? My father finished for me. I sighed. His bluntness was always painful. He's trying to find himself, I said, trying to defend my son. In your refrigerator? My father snorted. Linda, you've always been too soft. It doesn't help you or them. We talked for a few more minutes. About his health, unimportant. The weather, disgusting. Politics, hopeless. Not a word about what really worried us both. Our estrangement, my failed marriage, his loneliness after Mom's death. Dad, I said before saying goodbye, would you like to come over tomorrow? For dinner? The whole family will be there. Another pause, this time longer. I don't think that's a good idea, he finally replied. Michael won't be happy. He was right. Michael and my father never got along. Well, if you change your mind, I said, feeling relieved that he had declined, but also disappointed. After talking to my father, I started preparing for tomorrow. I had to marinate the meat, prepare the vegetables for the salad, and tidy up the house. The work helped me take my mind off the suspicions that were tormenting me. Around 5, Meredith called. Mom, she began without greeting me. Listen, Brad and I are going to be a little late tomorrow. Until about 9. Is that okay? Of course, I replied automatically. Is everything okay? Yes, just stuff, she dismissed. By the way, you don't mind if I invite a couple more people, do you? They really want to meet you and Dad. That was strange. Meredith had never brought friends to family dinners before, especially not on my birthday. Who are these people? I asked cautiously. Well, they're... She hesitated. Brad's colleagues. They won't stay long, just dropping by to say hello. Something in her voice alarmed me. She was clearly not telling me everything. Meredith, what's going on? I asked directly. You've all been acting strange lately. Nothing's going on, Mom, she replied too quickly. Just a normal birthday. Nothing special. After that conversation, my anxiety only grew. First Michael with that Tamsin, then the strange message on his phone, now Meredith with her mysterious guests. Something was definitely brewing, and I wasn't sure I was going to like it. Sean came home that evening. He was unusually animated and went straight up to his room without even stopping by the kitchen where I was making dinner. A little while later, I heard him talking to someone on the phone. His voice sounded muffled, but I could still make out some of the phrases. She doesn't suspect anything. Everything is going according to plan. Tomorrow at 8. I was overcome with fear. What were they all agreeing on behind my back? What would happen tomorrow? Michael came home late, smelling of alcohol and someone else's perfume. He barely glanced at me, muttered something like, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, and went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, going over all the strange events of the last few days in my mind and trying to piece them together into a coherent picture. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me, a surprise party with friends and colleagues. But then why was Michael meeting with that woman? And why did Tamsin's message say they don't suspect anything and not she doesn't suspect anything? No, there was something else going on, something more sinister. And for the first time in many years, I felt that same Linda Hollister awakening inside me, the one who was once not afraid to stand up for herself, her father's daughter. Tomorrow I'll find out what they're up to, and whatever it is, I'll be ready. The morning of my birthday began in silence. No congratulations, no hugs, no cards on the bedside table. Michael got up before me and left, leaving behind a crumpled pillow and the smell of yesterday's alcohol. I lay there for a few minutes, staring at the crack in the ceiling that had appeared last winter. Michael kept promising to fix it, but never got around to it. At 54, you begin to understand that some promises will never be kept. Just like some dreams. I got up and went to the mirror. My reflection was brutally honest. Wrinkles around my eyes, gray hairs peeking through my dark hair, tiredness in my eyes. Michael used to say I was the most beautiful woman in the world. When did he stop thinking that? When did he stop telling me that? In the kitchen, I found a note pinned down with a salt shaker. Meeting with contractors. We'll be back by 7. Not a word about my birthday. I crumpled up the piece of paper and threw it in the trash. Today is not the time for hurt feelings. I have more important things to do. I need to prepare a festive dinner. The day flew by in a flurry of activity. I baked ribs for Michael, turkey for Meredith, and made potato salad for Erwin. I baked an apple pie, Sean's favorite dessert, everything just the way they like it. I always knew that being a good mother and wife meant remembering all the little things, all the preferences, all the little habits of your loved ones. At 4 o'clock, a cake was delivered from the Sweet Dreams Bakery. The saleswoman kept her word. It was decorated with the inscription, "Happy Birthday, Linda," and a small figurine of a nurse made of fondant. This touching gesture from a complete stranger almost brought me to tears again. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. The table was set, the candles were lit, and the wine was opened. I put on my best dress, dark blue, with three-quarter sleeves that hid the flabbiness of my arms. It used to fit me perfectly, emphasizing my waist and chest. Now it hung like a sack, but I didn't have any other festive attire anyway. Sean was the first to arrive. He was unusually neat and even brought a bouquet. 3 carnations wrapped in cellophane. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said, awkwardly hugging me. He smelled of someone else's cologne. He must have borrowed it from one of his friends. "Thank you, dear," I replied, trying to hide my surprise at such thoughtfulness. "You look very handsome today." Sean blushed and immediately buried his face in his phone. His usual defensive reaction, but I noticed that he kept glancing at his watch as if waiting for something. Next to arrive were my neighbors, Eleanor and Patrick Connell. I had invited them a week ago, not suspecting what a strange turn the evening would take. They handed me a box of chocolates and a bottle of wine. "Linda, dear, you look wonderful," Eleanor lied, kissing me on the cheek. 54 is the prime of life." I smiled without correcting her. Eleanor was one of those people who believed that compliments should be given regardless of whether they were true. Michael returned at 7 o'clock sharp. He was carrying a small bag from a jewelry store, the first sign that he did remember my birthday after all. But something in his eyes, a tense, expectant expression, made me wary. "Happy birthday," he said, handing me the bag. There was no warmth in his voice, only a kind of feigned solemnity. Inside was a silver bracelet with a small heart-shaped pendant, an inexpensive but nice gift. I put it on, trying to feel grateful, but all I could think about was why Michael smelled of the same perfume as yesterday, Tamsin's perfume. "Thank you," I said, trying to make my voice sound normal. "It's very pretty." Michael nodded and immediately turned away, pretending to be busy greeting the neighbors. But I could see him constantly glancing at the front door. At 7:30, Erwin arrived with his wife Jenna. My eldest son, always so composed and serious, seemed nervous today. He handed me an envelope with a card and a gift card to a clothing store. "Buy yourself something, Mom," he said, avoiding my gaze. "You need to update your wardrobe." There was no malice in his words, but they still hurt me. It was as if my son was ashamed of how I looked. Rachel and her husband arrived at 8 in the evening. I invited them at the last minute, wanting to have at least one person around who was genuinely happy for me. Rachel gave me a really warm hug and handed me a beautifully wrapped box. "Open it later," she whispered in my ear. "It's for the woman, not the wife and mother." I smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness. In all the commotion, it was nice to feel that someone saw me not only as a function, but also as a person. Meredith was late. Erwin kept checking his phone, and Sean looked out the window every 5 minutes. Their tension rubbed off on me. Something was definitely brewing, and that something had to do with Meredith's arrival. At 20 minutes to 9, the doorbell rang. Michael literally jumped up from his seat. "I'll get it," he said, and almost ran out to the hallway. I heard voices, a woman's laughter, a man's muttering. Then Michael returned to the living room, followed by Meredith, Brad, and Tamsin, the same woman I had seen with my husband the day before. "Mom," Meredith kissed me on the cheek. "This is Tamsin Coyle, Dad's colleague. She really wanted to meet you." I froze, unable to say a word. Tamsin was beautiful in that striking, provocative way that makes other women feel dull and plain. Slim, with perfect posture, in a tight-fitting red dress and sky-high heels, she looked like a fashion model next to the extras. "It's very nice to meet you, Linda," she cooed, extending her perfectly manicured hand to me. "Michael has told me so much about you." Her perfume, the same one Michael wore, was too strong, too intrusive, just like her. "Likewise," I squeezed out, shaking her hand. "Please make yourselves comfortable." I noticed my children exchanging glances. Erwin looked embarrassed, Meredith strangely pleased, and Sean simply tense. They knew. They all knew about Tamsin and what was going on between her and Michael. We sat down at the table. Tamsin, of course, was next to Michael. She kept leaning toward him, whispering something, lightly touching his hand, and all this right in front of my eyes, on my birthday, in my own home. The neighbors and Rachel and her husband were clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Eleanor tried to keep the conversation going by talking about her new hobby, crocheting. Patrick drank his wine silently, occasionally glancing sympathetically in my direction. Rachel sat there, looking as if she was ready to jump up and defend me at any moment. Michael made a toast, a routine, impersonal one, as if read from a greeting card. Not a word about our 33 years together, not a single personal memory. It was as if he were congratulating a casual acquaintance rather than his wife. After the toast, I cut the cake. My hands were shaking, and Tamsin's piece turned out crooked and small. "Oh, I'd like a smaller piece," she said with feigned embarrassment. "I'm watching my figure." It sounded like a reproach, as if I wasn't watching my figure, and that's why I looked the way I did. "Of course," I replied, trying to remain calm. "Everyone has their own priorities." Michael gave me a warning look, but I pretended not to notice. Inside, anger was boiling up inside me, slow and heavy, like lava before a volcanic eruption. The conversation at the table was awkward. Tamsin kept taking the lead, talking about her travels, her apartment in a prestigious neighborhood, her education at the best university in the state. It all sounded like bragging, like she wanted to show how much better, more successful, and more interesting she was than me. Michael looked at her with undisguised admiration. My children also seemed to be charmed by this woman. Meredith listened to her every word. Erwin smiled politely, and even Sean looked up from his phone and listened with interest to her story about her trip to Europe. I sat at the head of the table, but I felt invisible. On my birthday, in my house, at my table, another woman was shining, the one my husband was apparently in a relationship with. After dessert, Michael suggested moving to the living room. Tamsin immediately stood next to him, putting her arm around his shoulder. The gesture was so blatant, so possessive, that I couldn't take it. "Michael, can I have a word with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice normal. "In the kitchen, please." He reluctantly left Tamsin and followed me. In the kitchen, I closed the door and turned to him. "What's going on?" I asked bluntly. "Who is this woman, really?" "I told you she's a colleague," he replied, avoiding my gaze. "Don't lie to me, Michael." My voice trembled. "I saw you together yesterday. I saw you hugging by her car. I saw the message on your phone. Everything is ready for tomorrow. They don't suspect anything. What is this about? What are you up to?" Michael paled, but quickly regained his composure. "Are you following me?" His voice took on a threatening tone. "Reading my messages?" "Answer my question," I insisted. "What's going on between you and that woman?" He looked at me for a long time, as if deciding whether to continue lying. Then he sighed. "Okay, Linda. You want to know the truth? Here it is. I've been seeing Tamsin for 6 months. She understands me, appreciates me, sees me as a man, not just a wallet and a handyman." Every word he said was like a stab in the heart. And you brought her to our house on my birthday? I whispered. How could you? It was Tamsin's idea, he said, and something like guilt appeared in his eyes. She wanted, she thought it would be better this way. To get to know you, the children. Better for whom? My voice grew stronger. For you? For her? Certainly not for me. Michael ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew so well. He always did that when he felt cornered. Linda, our marriage has long since run its course, he said quietly. We're just living out of habit. No love, no passion, no common interests. You know that yourself, his words were true, and that made it even more painful. But that's no reason to humiliate me in front of our children, in front of our friends, I replied. If you want a divorce, just say so, but don't do this. I waved my hand toward the living room. I didn't want to humiliate you. He shook his head. I just thought it would be easier. For everyone, I laughed bitterly. Easier? Bringing your mistress to your wife's birthday party? Making her sit at the same table with the woman you betrayed? You call that easier? At that moment, the kitchen door opened and Tamsin appeared in the doorway. Is everything okay? She asked with feigned concern. You were gone so long. I turned to her, feeling a wave of rage rising inside me. No, it's not okay. You sleep with my husband. You come to my house on my birthday, and you have the nerve to ask if everything is okay? Tamsin took a step back, clearly not expecting such directness, but she quickly recovered from her confusion. Linda, I understand how you feel, but… No, you don't, I interrupted her. And don't you dare pretend you came here with the best of intentions. You came here to mark your territory, to show me, my children, and our friends that you are now Michael's woman. Tamsin flushed with anger. It's not my problem that you couldn't keep your husband. Maybe you should have taken better care of yourself or taken an interest in something other than cooking and cleaning. Her words hit the mark, my deepest fears and doubts. Tamsin, that's enough, Michael intervened. But it was too late. The truth hurts, doesn't it? She continued, feeling superior. Look at yourself, a gray, dreary creature with no ambition, no style, no… Enough, Michael barked. Please leave. But Tamsin didn't let up. Do you know what Michael says about you? That you've long since become a piece of furniture, inconspicuous, but necessary for comfort. That's what you are to him. I looked at Michael, searching his eyes for a refutation of these cruel words, but he remained silent, looking away. And that silence spoke louder than any words. Something inside me broke. 33 years of marriage, 3 children, thousands of days and nights together. And this is how it ends. I am being compared to a piece of furniture in my own home. On my birthday, I left the kitchen, feeling my knees tremble. Everyone in the living room had fallen silent upon hearing our argument. Meredith was looking at the floor. Erwin was pretending to be engrossed in conversation with Brad. Only Sean was looking directly at me, with sympathy and shame. I think the party's over, I said, addressing everyone. Thanks for coming. Rachel was the first to get up. Linda, let me stay with you, she offered quietly. I shook my head. No, it's okay. I'm fine. It was a lie, and we both knew it. But I needed to be alone, more precisely, alone with my family, who had just shown their true feelings toward me. The neighbors said an awkward goodbye and left. Rachel hugged me one last time and whispered, "Call me if you need to." I nodded, knowing I wouldn't. I was used to solving my own problems. When all the guests had left, only we remained in the living room. Me, Michael, our children, and Tamsin, who apparently had no intention of leaving. Mom, Meredith began, we didn't want it to turn out this way. What did you want? I asked, looking at my daughter. For me to silently accept the humiliation? To pretend that everything was fine? No one wanted to humiliate you, Erwin interjected. It's just, well, Dad and Tamsin, they're together, and we thought it would be better to get everything out in the open right away. And you all knew? I looked from one face to another. You all knew about their relationship and kept quiet? My children looked away, all except Sean. I only found out yesterday, he said quietly. They made me keep quiet. Sean, Meredith exclaimed. How could you? Enough, I cut her off. So this is how you decided to celebrate my birthday? By publicly humiliating your own mother? No one was trying to humiliate you, Michael repeated, following Tamsin out of the kitchen. We just wanted to do everything civilized. Civilized? I repeated, feeling a wave of anger rising inside me. Bringing your mistress into your wife's house is civilized? Making me sit at the same table with her is civilized? Michael sighed. Linda, I'm tired of your tantrums. It's always the same. You make yourself out to be the victim and me the monster. Isn't that true? I asked, taking a step toward him. Didn't you betray our family? Weren't you the one who broke the vow you made to me 33 years ago? You were the first to break it, he replied sharply, unexpectedly. You swore to love and care for me, but you turned into a gloomy, perpetually dissatisfied shadow. When was the last time you took an interest in my affairs, my dreams? When was the last time you were a woman, not just a cook and a laundress? His words hurt more than a slap in the face, because there was some truth in them. I had indeed lost myself in this marriage, in caring for my family. But hadn't he himself contributed to that? When was the last time you saw me as a woman, not a servant? I asked quietly. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you took an interest in my feelings, my desires? Tamsin snorted. God, what melodrama. Maybe it's time to stop sorting things out. This woman who had destroyed my family had the nerve to interfere. Something inside me snapped, like a fuse had blown. Get out of my house, I said, looking her straight in the eye. Now. Tamsin laughed. It's not really your house anymore, Linda. Michael told me that after the divorce, he's keeping it. After all, he's been paying the mortgage all these years. I turned to Michael. So, you've already discussed the division of property? Behind my back? Michael looked embarrassed. Tamsin, we agreed we wouldn't. What's the point of beating around the bush? She interrupted him. Everything has already been decided. You're getting divorced, you get the house, she gets compensation and moves out. It's fair, I couldn't believe my ears. They had already planned everything, my life, my future, without asking, without consulting me, without even warning me. You're both crazy. I shook my head. This house belongs to both of us. I worked just as hard as you, Michael. Maybe I didn't bring in as much money, but you took care of the house and the children. Yes, yes, Tamsin finished for me mockingly. Only now the children are grown, and the house, well, let's just say it's not in perfect condition. That was too much. I turned to my children. And you? Do you also think I deserve nothing after 33 years of marriage? After everything I've done for you? Meredith shifted awkwardly from foot to foot. Mom, no one is saying you deserve nothing. It's just, Dad and Tamsin love each other. Don't you want him to be happy? I looked at my daughter and didn't recognize her. When did she become so cold, so calculating? What about my happiness? I asked. Doesn't anyone care about that? Mom, Erwin said, we all want you to be happy. But maybe you should move on too. Find someone my age? I smiled bitterly. Someone who will appreciate a dull, perpetually dissatisfied shadow. Silence fell. No one knew what to say. I felt the pressure building inside me, like a steam boiler about to explode. You know what? I finally said. I've realized one thing. All these years, I've lived for you. I sacrificed myself, my dreams, my desires, and you took it for granted. No gratitude, no respect, only demands and reproaches. I turned to Michael. You're right about one thing. Our marriage has run its course, but not because I've stopped being a woman. It's because you've stopped being a man. A real man doesn't humiliate a woman who has been by his side for 33 years. He doesn't bring his mistress into their shared home. He doesn't make plans behind her back. Michael turned red with anger. Don't you dare talk to me like that, he shouted. Don't you dare tell me what to do in my own house. Our home, I corrected him, and I'll speak as I see fit. Shut up. He took a step toward me, clenching his fists. Shut up or I'll... What will you do? I didn't back down an inch. Hit me? Go ahead. Show your new girlfriend what a man you are. That was too much. Michael had always been quick-tempered, but he had never raised a hand to me. Until that moment. It happened so fast that I didn't even have time to dodge. His palm slammed into my cheek with such force that I staggered and almost fell. A deafening silence hung in the room. I slowly straightened up, feeling my face burning from the blow. Dad, Sean exclaimed, jumping up from his seat. What are you doing? But Michael didn't seem to hear him. He stood there, breathing heavily, staring at me with hatred. See what you've done to me? It's always the same. You provoke, and then play the victim. I remained silent, pressing my hand to my burning cheek. A strange emptiness spread through my chest. It was as if the last thread connecting me to this person had been severed. Tamsin giggled, quietly, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. I'm sorry, she said, noticing the shocked looks. It's just such drama over nothing. Her laughter was the last straw. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, not from pain, but from humiliation, from the realization that the man I had spent most of my life with could do this to me. At that moment, the front door swung open. Standing on the threshold was my father, Nathan Hollister, tall and straight, despite his 78 years, in an impeccably ironed shirt and with a cane in his hand. His gaze instantly assessed the situation, my reddened cheek, Michael's aggressive posture, Tamsin's smirk, the confused children. What's going on here? He asked quietly, but there was such steel in his voice that everyone instantly fell silent. A dead silence fell over the room. Nathan Hollister stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane, but there was not a trace of senile weakness in his posture. Years of military service had shaped him into a man whom neither age nor illness could bend. His gaze, cold and appraising, slowly swept across the room, lingering on each face. I asked, "What's going on here?" he repeated, taking a step forward. Michael was the first to recover. Nathan? His voice sounded tense, but he tried to maintain a semblance of control. This is an unexpected visit. We didn't know you were coming. Obviously, Nathan replied dryly. He walked over to me and gently took my chin, turning my face to examine my reddened cheek. Did he hit you? I couldn't say a word, just nodded. Shame and humiliation tightened my throat. I never wanted my father to see me like this, broken, weak, pathetic. Nathan turned to Michael. There was such fury in his eyes that my husband instinctively took a step back. You raised your hand to my daughter? My father's voice was quiet, but every word sounded like a sentence. She provoked me. Michael began to justify himself. She always does that. She gets me all worked up, and then... Nathan's movement was so quick that no one had time to react. His cane shot up and pressed against Michael's chest, pinning him against the wall. Despite his age, my father had retained remarkable strength and reflexes. One more word of excuse, and I'll forget that I'm 78, Nathan hissed through clenched teeth. A real man never raises his hand to a woman. Never. No matter what the reason, Michael paled, but anger flashed in his eyes. Don't tell me how to behave in my own house, old man. You're nobody here, Nathan smiled. A cold, dangerous smile that I remembered so well from my childhood. It always heralded a storm. But I know exactly who you are, he said, lowering his cane. A petty crook who plans to fleece my daughter. A tense silence hung in the room. My children looked at each other, clearly not understanding what their grandfather was talking about. Tamsin froze, the confident expression fading from her face. What are you talking about? I asked, feeling a chill inside. Nathan took a folded piece of paper from his jacket's inside pocket. This, he said, unfolding the document. A statement from your husband's secret account. An account you don't know about, Michael jerked forward, trying to grab the paper, but Nathan stepped back with a dexterity unexpected for his age. Don't even try, he warned. I have copies of all the documents, and I'm not the only one. Michael froze, his face contorted with impotent rage. Tamsin stepped forward, trying to take control of the situation. I don't know what you found there, Mr. Hollister, but I'm sure there's a simple explanation for everything. Nathan gave her such a contemptuous look that she involuntarily stepped back. Colonel Hollister to you, miss, and I advise you not to open your mouth until I address you directly. I had never seen my father speak to anyone so dismissively. Even Michael on his worst days had never been treated that way. Dad, I stepped toward him. What account are you talking about? Nathan handed me the paper. The account at First National Bank of Charlotte, opened in Michael Everett's name 8 months ago. Monthly deposits ranging from $3,000 to $5,000. Total balance as of today, $32,480. I looked over the statement, and with each line I felt worse and worse. All this money. Where did it come from? We had always lived paycheck to paycheck, saving on everything, putting aside literally every penny for our old age. Michael? I looked up at him. Where did this money come from? He was silent, his lips pressed into a thin line. Tell her, Nathan suggested. Or should I continue? When Michael didn't answer again, my father turned to me. It's money from his construction projects. Just not the official ones. Your husband takes orders under the table, completes them using materials written off from major projects, and pockets the payment. Classic scheme. Michael flushed red. That's slander. You can't prove anything. I can't? Nathan took out another folder. Here are the statements of 2 foremen you hired for these under-the-table jobs, and 3 more customers who confirmed that they paid you in cash without any contracts. Shall I continue? I couldn't believe my ears. Michael, who had always been so proud of his honesty, his integrity, he had been stealing and cheating. Why? Was all I could ask. Why did you need a secret account? Michael didn't answer, but Nathan did it for him. For the divorce, of course. Your husband was planning to file for divorce, but first he wanted to secure a financial cushion for himself. Money you don't know about can't be divided in a divorce. At least that's what he thought. I looked over at Tamsin. She stood there, biting her lip, clearly nervous. Something about her behavior prompted me to ask the next question. Did she know? Nathan nodded. Oh, she didn't just know. She was part of the plan from the beginning. Or do you think she fell in love with your husband solely because of his irresistible charm? Tamsin flushed. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know enough, Nathan cut in. I know you don't work as an accountant, but as a divorce lawyer. I know you specialize in cases where one party tries to hide assets from the other. And I know that you didn't meet Michael by chance, but through a mutual acquaintance, Howard Mills, who is known for his dubious legal schemes. Tamsin paled, but continued to act defiantly. That's all speculation. You have no proof, really? Nathan took out his phone and played the recording. Michael's voice came from the speaker. As soon as she receives her inheritance from her aunt, we'll file for divorce. The money will already be in the account, and we'll be able to. I didn't recognize that cold, calculating voice. Was this really the man I had lived with for 33 years? Turn it off, Michael hissed. Nathan complied, but immediately added, I have a few more recordings like this, including one where you and Miss Coyle discuss what to do with the house after you evict Linda. I felt the ground slip away beneath my feet. Aunt Martha's inheritance. It was supposed to arrive in a month. It wasn't a large sum, only about $50,000. But for us, it was a lot of money. I dreamed of renovating the house, maybe even taking a trip somewhere with Michael. And all this time, he was planning to divorce me. How could you? I looked at him, not recognizing the man I once loved. 33 years together, and all for this? To deceive me and take the money? You don't understand, Michael snapped. I've been supporting this family for years. That money is mine. I earned it with my own labor. So I've been doing nothing all these years? Bitterness crept into my voice. Raising your children, running your house, working 2 jobs when your company went bankrupt. Is that worth nothing? Michael turned away, not wanting to meet my gaze. Nathan put his hand on my shoulder. And that's not all, Linda. Your husband wasn't just planning a divorce. He wanted to leave you penniless. Remember the second mortgage you took out 3 years ago, supposedly to renovate the house? I nodded. Of course I remembered. The renovations that never happened because unforeseen circumstances arose. That money is gone, Nathan continued. Michael transferred it to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. I haven't been able to get full access to that account yet, but it looks like there's about $100,000 in there. I swayed and Sean jumped up to support me. His face was white with shock. Dad, he whispered, looking at Michael. Is this true? Michael didn't answer, but his silence spoke louder than any words. Meredith, who had been sitting with her face in her hands, suddenly looked up. Did you know about this? She asked Erwin. Did you know that Dad was cheating on Mom? My eldest son looked as if he had been punched in the gut. No, he exclaimed. Of course not. Dad just said that he and Mom, that their relationship. He faltered, unable to find the words. But I knew, Meredith suddenly said, and everyone turned to her. Not everything, but Dad said he was going to divorce Mom and that it would be better for all of us if we were on his side. I looked at my daughter, not believing my ears. And you agreed? Just like that? Meredith lowered her eyes. He said he'd buy me a car and help with the down payment on an apartment. A heavy silence hung in the air. I felt something break inside me, the last threads connecting me to this family that I loved so much and to which I had given my all. Nathan shook his head. See, Linda? This is who you've been raising all these years. People who are willing to sell you for a car and an apartment. He turned to my children. Did you ever wonder where your father got all that money? Did you ever wonder why a man who had barely made ends meet his whole life suddenly became so generous? Or did you not care as long as he promised you handouts? Erwin and Meredith were silent, staring at the floor. Only Sean looked straight ahead, tears welling up in his eyes. I didn't know, Grandpa. I swear, I didn't know. Nathan softened as he looked at his youngest grandson. I believe you, kid. You've always been more honest than the rest of them. Tamsin, who had been nervously fiddling with the strap of her purse, suddenly stepped forward. This is all very touching, but you can't prove that I had anything to do with Michael's financial affairs. I just, the woman he cheated on his wife with? Nathan interrupted her. I don't think that improves your position, especially considering that your name appears on the offshore account documents. As a co-signatory, Tamsin turned even paler. That's impossible. We were very careful, but not careful enough. Nathan smiled, and there was not a trace of warmth in that smile. You see, when you've been in intelligence for 30 years, you have certain connections. People who can find information that is not available to ordinary citizens. Michael finally snapped out of his stupor. You're bluffing. There is no offshore account, and no records either. Nathan shrugged. Want to check? Let's call the tax office right now. I have a few friends there who will be delighted with this material. Michael and Tamsin exchanged panicked glances. I could almost physically feel their plan collapsing, the house of cards they had so carefully built crumbling. What do you want? Michael finally asked, his voice sounding uncertain for the first time that evening. Me? Nathan raised his eyebrows. I want my daughter to get what she's entitled to. Half of all your assets, including the house and the money you've been so diligently hiding. And I want you to never come near her again. Michael smirked, trying to regain his confidence. You can't make me. It's my money, and I'll fight for it in court. Really? Nathan took out his phone again. Then maybe I should call Frank Donnelly? Remember him? Your former partner, whom you so beautifully framed 5 years ago with that municipal construction contract. He still thinks it was just bad luck, but I'm sure he'd be interested to know the truth. Michael turned pale. You wouldn't dare. I dare, Nathan replied calmly. And not only that, I have a list of all your schemes over the last 10 years, every fake invoice, every unaccounted payment, every gray order. I can destroy you with one phone call. A heavy silence hung in the room. Michael looked as if he had been cornered and was frantically searching for a way out. Tamsin put her hand on his shoulder. He's bluffing, Michael. No one can have that kind of information. Nathan laughed, shortly and without amusement. You have no idea what my father is capable of when his daughter is in danger, Miss Coyle. And by the way, I have some information about you, too. For example, how you helped your previous client hide assets from his wife, and how those assets then mysteriously found their way into your personal accounts. Tamsin recoiled, her confidence instantly evaporating. That's a lie. Maybe, Nathan agreed. But are you sure you want to test that in court? Under oath? I watched this exchange as if spellbound. My father, whom I had always considered a stern military man, turned out to be a true master of strategy. He had cornered Michael and Tamsin, using their own weapons against them, deception and manipulation. What are you proposing? Michael finally asked, defeat in his voice. Nathan took another document out of his pocket. Here's the property settlement agreement. It's very simple. The house goes to Linda. The accounts are divided in half, including the ones she didn't know about. You pay her $50,000 in compensation for emotional distress, and you never show up in her life again. Michael looked over the document, his face contorted with anger. This is robbery. No, Nathan replied calmly. This is justice, and the cheapest way out of this situation for you. The alternative is court, a tax audit, and probably jail time. Michael turned his gaze to me. Linda, you can't let him do this. We were married for 33 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I looked at the man I once loved more than life itself and felt nothing but fatigue and disappointment. It meant something to me. What about you? He didn't answer, and his silence spoke louder than any words. Tamsin tugged at his sleeve. Don't sign anything. We can fight this. We have money for good lawyers. Money he stole from his family, Nathan reminded her. Not the best position to start a lawsuit from, don't you think? Michael hesitated, his gaze darting between the document, Tamsin, and me. Finally, he gave in. Give me a pen. Nathan handed him a pen, and Michael signed the agreement, gritting his teeth. Now get out of this house, Nathan said, taking the signed document. Both of you. Tamsin tried to protest. You can't just kick us out. Michael has the right. Not anymore, Nathan interrupted, tapping the signed agreement. According to this document, the house belongs to Linda, and you are here without her permission. Technically, that's called trespassing. Michael gave me one last look, a mixture of anger, regret, and something else I couldn't quite make out. Then he turned and headed for the door. Tamsin followed him, saying one last thing. You'll regret this, all of you. When the door closed behind them, the room fell silent. I stood there, unable to believe that all this had really happened, that the man I had spent most of my life with could betray me so cruelly. Nathan turned to my children. Now let's talk about you. Erwin and Meredith exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable under their grandfather's intense gaze. The three of you, Nathan began, looking them over, were the center of my daughter's life. Everything she did for you. She gave up her career, her dreams, her ambitions. And how did you repay her? Meredith tried to justify herself. Grandpa, we didn't know about Dad's plans. We thought, what? Nathan interrupted her. That he just decided to divorce your mother after 33 years of marriage? And you accepted it as a matter of course? You didn't even ask why? You didn't think about how she would live on? Erwin lowered his head. We were wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Mom. I looked at my children and saw not adults, independent people, but those little boys and girls I once held in my arms, whom I taught to walk, talk, and distinguish between good and evil. Where did I go wrong? I asked quietly. What did I do wrong that made you grow up so indifferent? Sean came up to me and took my hand. It's not your fault, Mom. It's us. Me, he faltered. I always took you for granted. Your care, your love, your support. I never thought about what it cost you. There were tears in his eyes, and I couldn't help myself. I hugged him, holding him close like I did when he was a child and came to me with his little problems. It's okay, sweetie, I whispered. Everything will be fine. Erwin and Meredith approached us uncertainly, as if afraid I would push them away. But I just opened my arms wider to welcome them. They were my children, no matter what. They may have made mistakes, they may have been blind and selfish, but I loved them unconditionally. Nathan watched us with an inscrutable expression, but I noticed his gaze soften. What now? Erwin asked when we finally pulled apart. Now, Nathan replied for me, the three of you will start learning to be a family again. A real family, based on respect and mutual support, not consumerism. He turned to Meredith. Starting with you returning all the money you've borrowed from your mother over the years. And I'm not talking about the $20 bills you took from her purse. I'm talking about the $3,000 for your vacation in Florida, the $2,000 for your new laptop, the... Enough, Dad, I interrupted him, seeing Meredith blush. None of that matters now. No, Mom, Meredith objected, looking me in the eye. Grandpa's right. I took money from you knowing you would never ask for it back. It was mean of me. I shook my head. You're my daughter. I've always helped you, and I always will. But it's time to learn to give, not just take. Meredith finished for me. I understand. And I'll make amends, I promise. Erwin cleared his throat to get our attention. I haven't always been fair to you either, Mom. I forgot to call, I rarely visited, and when you asked for help, I always made excuses. And I, added Sean, lived in your house, ate your food, spent your money, and didn't even try to find a permanent job. That will change, I swear. I looked at my children and for the first time in a long time saw in their eyes not irritation or condescension, but sincere remorse and love. Nathan put his hand on my shoulder. See, Linda? Sometimes you have to destroy the old to build something new, something better. I turned to my father. How did you know? About Michael? About his plans? Nathan smiled. I've always kept an eye on you. On all of you, just from a distance. When you called yesterday, I heard something in your voice that made me sit up and take notice. Then I made a few calls, reconnected with some old contacts. Information is power, Linda. I always told you that. I remembered how, when I was a child, my father taught me never to take anything at face value, always to check the facts, always to stay one step ahead. Lessons I had unfortunately forgotten when I married Michael. Thank you, Dad, I said, hugging him, for everything. Nathan awkwardly patted me on the back. He was never good at showing his feelings. You're welcome, daughter. I just did what I should have done a long time ago. I looked at my watch. It was almost midnight. My birthday was coming to an end. A day that began with humiliation and betrayal, but ended with unexpected liberation. It was as if the heavy chains that had bound me for years had finally fallen away. What are you going to do now? Sean asked. I smiled, for the first time in this long day, sincerely and freely. Live, I replied. Just live. Truly,